welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder, and today's episode is brought to you by Sarah's Chill. The Milk Stash freezes milk into perfectly portioned half-ounce cubes so you can easily defrost the exact amount of milk you need for a bottle without wasting an entire bag. And we will hear more from our sponsor a little later, but you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. If you ever need anything, see if you can give any of them your business because they make this podcast possible. And while you're there, scroll down, enter your email address, and we'll send episodes straight to your inbox every week. And we are on Patreon, and we would like to see you there. So the link is at the top of the show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from. Also over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And we have a lot of things going on over there. Like you can also check out on badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com our Wall of Fame, which is all of our awesome patrons that we've ever had. You get your name highlighted there. And so check out the link at the top of the notes. And we are still hosting our ongoing giveaway for people who leave reviews around the internet. Take a screenshot of your review or your star ranking and send it to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And we will send you a goodie bag of stickers and thank you for nursing in public cards. And so take a screenshot, send it to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com and include your address. I'm also going to take a moment to remind everybody about the Milk Bank Challenge. This is the event that's going on until December, the beginning of December or the end of December. I can't remember at the moment right now. But you can make a donation to a milk bank, any milk bank, and you take your confirmation of donation and you submit it to the link that I will also provide in the show notes underneath the Patreon link. We have a lot of links, but you sign up there, you send them your confirmation, and they will credit your Amazon account with $250. I'm serious. It's really happening. People, it's happening. So donate. And the whole point of this is to increase donations to milk banks. Because as we know, breast milk saves the lives of babies all the time. And so they need to have milk donations coming in. So do it. If you have milk sitting around, donate it. If you don't, pump some. I know that's much easier said than done, but check out what the minimum amount is and see if you can pump that. And again, all of that will be at the link at the top of the show notes. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
Yeah, so this comes from an SLP, a speech language pathologist, and CLC. I just opened up an LLC for lactation support and all things feeding related therapy. I still refer to your podcast for topics as it got me through both my pregnancies and breastfeeding journeys without a doubt. I breastfed my now 4-year-old for a year and still working on weaning my 2.5-year-old mama's boy, to put that in quotes, as my husband refers to him, and he's not wrong, and I don't hate it. I don't know how I didn't write you guys a review yet. You guys know so much, are so honest, woke, and reassuring. My best advice for new moms is to trust our bodies. We are made to do amazing things. I hear myself repeating things you've said on the podcast to the mothers I've helped and smile knowing I learned so much from you both. Thank you. Well, congratulations to you for starting your own lactation practice.
I know, that's exciting.
Awesome. And speech language pathologists are really important for those babies who are not feeding well, that have a suck dysfunction or a swallow dysfunction and just really, tongue tie revision, anything like that. Those speech language pathologists are just vital in helping those babies get back on track. So thank you so much for doing that. And it is really great work that you're doing and for finally writing the review. Thank you. It's awesome.
I feel like this is the kind of thing that this is not a referral that you're going to get from your pediatrician.
No.
Right? This is going to come from a lactation consultant who's helping you with your feeding problems.
I remember being in the peds office and having a family that I wanted to go to feeding therapy. And the pediatrician was like, said to the patient, well, it's just one more appointment you'd have to do. So they opted to not go. because he didn't encourage it.
Yeah.
So,
because they don't. Whatever. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. You can just use formula. It's fine. No big deal.
Or pump. End up exclusively pumping.
Or pump. Yeah. Oh, God.
Which, if you're doing that, I give you so much credit, all the credit in the world. But usually people end up doing that sometimes by choice, but sometimes not by choice. So if there's a way to get help, then get the help.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you should be encouraged to do what you want to do. You should be given all the support and all the referrals and all the everything for whatever your goal is. That should be their number one priority in providing that.
So yeah, SLPs are a great resource. Definitely check one out. If you need one, get one. If you have one in your area that specializes in feeding, that's fantastic. It's a great resource. And if you have an IBCLC that you're working with, you can even ask them if that's something that you think that you should be doing, is seeing an SLP. And they'd be super helpful.
Right on. And we can talk about various sicknesses and how to breastfeed through those, how to best make it through each one, because each one has different symptoms and
and
for you and your baby.
We have an email about this, don't we? Somebody
we
emailed
do.
us.
Yes. So let me find it because I'm never really prepared. Yeah, I am. This comes from a listener, and she says, "Hello, badass breastfeeding babes." I think that's us.
Yeah, that's us.
I just found your podcast, and I'm binge listening, passing it on to all my mama friends. Amazing how 8 months into this nursing journey, I feel like I'm learning all new stuff, which that's an exciting time. Like when you're breastfeeding and then you start just learning all kinds of things about it.
It is.
So her question is, my daughter has some major mucus. She's still nursing, but sounds terrible. Coughing, occasionally choking, and only able to nurse for 10 seconds at a time. Is there any way to assist her? She doesn't seem to be getting much milk. Should I try to nurse her more frequently? How do I keep my supply through this stuffy nose season? And I thought this was a good way to start off today because that's a really good question. And you actually do get this a lot. It's like, well, wait, my baby's stuffed up. How can they latch on and breastfeed? And this is something that we've all been through.
Right, because they can't breathe, right? They feed and they're breathing through their nose and they can't feed. So you find that they're kind of coming on and off a lot more. They're not really able to do a full feeding well. Maybe you feel like they're not really draining the breast well for you. And you got to remember too, when babies don't feel good, it's just like when we don't feel good, they might not want to eat as much. They might not want to eat like they used to eat either. So trying to kind of the nasal stuff, it's awful because how do you get a baby to blow their nose? Yeah. Like you can't put the Kleenex up there and say, blow, like you do with a toddler. But you just got to kind of use the little squeegee thing as much as you can, which I always hated those booger sucker things.
Yeah. The nose Frida.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really gross, but that works.
They work. Yeah. But
it's really gross. It's gross, but I feel like you just that's just one of a million gross things that you're going to deal with your baby and your child.
Yeah.
They also, my doctor would always recommend taking steams, which we still do. You go into the bathroom, turn your shower on hot, just all the way hot. Don't get in it. Sit on the toilet or stand there, whatever, and wait for the room to fill up with steam and hang out in there for 10 or 15 minutes. It will really loosen things up. And then you can also do the nose sucker thing after that.
Yeah.
Which will get a lot out. Now, that's temporary, but that stuff does help you through this.
Sometimes saline, sometimes they'll suggest saline, doing a little saline in their nose.
Yeah, that can make them sneeze, which really helps get stuff out too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be really hard and difficult. And sometimes it's kind of like I said, they might not want to eat as well. So you might have to do a little pumping during this time just to be sure if you're feeling like you're still full, they're just not latching as much. They're just not, I mean, definitely offer as much as you can, because of course we know that your body is making the antibodies. Your baby is telling your body, I am sick. And your body is making the antibodies to ward off that sickness, that illness. So we want your baby to get that great milk. But at the same time, they might not want it that much.
Right. And she asked about like, should I offer more frequently? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if she can only do a little bit at a time, then just be doing it at a little bit at a time and let her kind of, get as much as she can, in that time. Nurses, as much as you can. Nurse upright. Like side-lying is not a great time for side-lying because that just makes all of the mucus pool and nasal passages swell. So this isn't, it's a pain in the butt, but like having your baby up as upright as possible will help them.
Mm-hmm. Put them in a carrier, something like that.
Yeah. And what about trying a cup?
Yeah, you could do that. You could put the milk in a cup, try a cup with them, try an open cup. If you're really if you're really concerned and really worried that your baby's just not eating, and we don't want them to be dehydrated. So you can put a little bit of milk in a cup and give it to them that way. I would do an open cup, honestly, with them, and see if you can get some milk into them that way. Or if they're already using a cup for water, if they're old enough, like this baby she said was 8 months old, maybe she's already using a cup.
Mm-hmm.
So you could always do it that way. If she's using like a straw cup or something like that, you can always put it in there and see if she can take it that way. Just somehow to get those fluids into her and get that milk into her.
Right. And, she also asked about keeping her supply up while the baby's not able to drain the breast very well. And that is, that's something that you're going to want to consider depending on how hard of a time the baby's having.
Mm-hmm. And how long it's going on for. You know, I mean, if it's just a day or two, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if it's, been going on for several days and it's not getting much better and the nursing isn't getting more frequent, then yeah, you're probably going to have to start doing some pumping.
Yeah. I'm trying to. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that there's not a lot of illnesses that I come across that babies are having that we need to breastfeed through. I haven't seen like serious illnesses come up. Things like ear infections are common, respiratory infections, things like that are more common. Daycare, if your child's in daycare, you might see a lot more illnesses.
Oh, yeah.
But ear infections can be difficult as well. And sometimes we don't even know the baby has an ear infection until they start giving you some problems with feeding.
Oh, right. Yeah. Or they're like really fussy and feeding and
that sucking can hurt. Yeah, the sucking might be hurtful. They might start on a nursing strike. And that's one of the things, like when people come to me with a nursing strike, that is one of the things we look for is, does the baby have an ear infection? Have you ruled that out yet? Because that can absolutely start a nursing strike because it's painful. The sucking motion for babies can be painful with an ear infection. So again, feed them upright. If that's the case, definitely get it treated. Or like if you are seeing nursing problems or a nursing strike, definitely get that ruled out. Make sure that it is not. I had somebody come to me not that long ago for a baby that wasn't nursing well at all. And they happened to have a doctor's appointment like the next day or something. And it turned out the baby had like this raging ear infection.
Ugh, ow.
And had no idea. Like they had no idea. And she was just like, I feel so bad, But once they had it treated, she was fine. She fed great. So, I mean, once things are treated and, it can absolutely be the cause of nursing strike or just babies that just are not nursing well at all.
So true. Should we take a break?
Oh, yes, we should.
Take a break and hear from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Sarah's Chill, a company that never stops making the lives of breastfeeding parents easier. Tons of expensive landfill plastic and short-term products are so yesterday. Created by a mom for moms, Sarah's Chill knows how important every ounce of breast milk is. Their epic freezer storage system called the Milk Stash is the solution to all freezer stash problems. No more leaking bags, wasted milk, or crammed, disorganized freezer spaces. The Milk Stash freezes milk in perfectly portioned half-ounce cubes, so you can easily defrost the exact amount of milk you need for a bottle without wasting an entire bag. It's space-saving, easy to clean, and great for teething nets as well. Just freeze the cubes in the tray, and when it's frozen, you can pop them out and put them in a freezer bag to free up the tray again. And then you just pull these little half-ounce, say you want, 2 ounces of milk. You just put 4 of those cubes in there, and it's super cool. The Milk Stash is FSA, HSA reimbursable, and it lasts a lifetime. Use it for frozen baby food purees, fruit-infused cubes, or Jell-O shots for the block party after your journey is over. Or during your journey while somebody responsible is taking care of the baby.
There you go.
This is truly breast milk storage reimagined. Head over to sarahschill.com, CERESCHILL.com. You can check them out on Instagram at the same name. Use code BADASS over at their website for 15% off of the Milk Stash. And you can find our sponsors and their promo codes in the show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from. And you can also find it over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, along with all of other episodes and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yeah. What other illnesses are we talking about today?
Yeah. Well, so I think there's like stomach viruses.
Oh, yeah.
Which are just like, babies never stop puking. Like when they're sick.
Yeah.
And they're throwing up, it's just like over and over again. You're like, oh my God, this is the biggest emergency. My baby is sicker than any baby has ever been. And they just puke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. Exley's still like this. Like he'll puke all day.
Aw, that sucks.
Yeah. And it's like the worst thing. Throwing up is the worst thing. It's horrible.
It is.
But, obviously breast milk is fantastic for this because, again, your body is helping to make the antibodies to fight off this virus as well. And I know one of my... I know this is a common concern for all parents is we're constantly afraid that our babies are getting dehydrated, especially when they're throwing up, because they're throwing up constantly and surely they must be out of liquid in their body. Surely it must be an emergency. But when you put any kind of liquid on top of a stomach that is still trying to rid itself of whatever it's trying to rid itself of, it's just going to keep throwing it up. And I remember calling the doctor's office one day and saying like, throwing up is, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, I know it's common. It's really common to worry about babies, being dehydrated, but you got to let their stomach settle for a second. Mm-hmm. Just, let their stomach just settle for a little while. Because otherwise they're just going to keep throwing it up. So, that's really hard. You have to gauge it for yourself. If you feed your baby and then they immediately throw it up, don't just immediately feed them again. Give them a second or more than a second, Obviously, talk to your doctor. You can just call doctor's offices and they can give you advice over the phone. And this is the kind of thing where I was about to say where doctors are really useful. But even with this situation, sometimes the breast milk thing, they're not quite clear on. Like, we get a lot of advice to separate the baby, wear a mask, wear gloves, obviously wash your hands, but like, you don't need to separate from your baby. Don't do that. Stay with your baby. A lot of people they'll get sick and they'll be like, oh, should I have somebody else taking care of the baby? And you don't want to do that. You want to be with your baby as much as possible, because that's how your body's communicating with your baby and the illness that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And your baby's benefiting from being with you, even when you're sick. Like, remember all that with COVID?
Oh, God, yes. What a nightmare.
And how many babies are being separated from their parents, even though the parents weren't even having symptoms. And
oh, we're probably triggering listeners right now.
I know,
with this,
sorry.
So awful.
It's
awful.
Just so not necessary.
Not necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary.
So yeah, things with like a sick, like a stomach virus. There's nothing special that you need to do. Breast milk is still good. Don't give them water. You don't want to just give a baby randomly give them water.
Especially if they're younger than 6 months. You can't.
Yeah, and I think that's like it's like people are tempted to, because they keep throwing up. And they're like, well, maybe just a little bit of water, because you're so panicked.
I know.
But don't do it.
Do not do it.
And this is just a messy thing, because if they're throwing up, they probably have diarrhea too. And that's not fun.
No, it's not. It is not. And this is and it's so hard to see your baby sick. So this is just one of those really tough things as a parent, and navigating it, navigating around it, and, can be hard, because especially with the stomach virus, to kind of like lay off the feeding a little bit until their stomach settles. And if they're a comfort nurser, they just want to be attached to you. They're just, want to be with you. So they just need a lot of comfort.
Yeah. And if your baby's fevery, you can try some of the things that we say for like teething, like a frozen washcloth to suck on, or like, because if they're not in the mood to eat, but they still might want, something in their mouth, it's at the very least, it's distracting.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
They have those little net things. Those we were just talking about with the milk stash, with the net teethers. You can put like a little cube from the milk stash into one of the teethers, and just have them kind of have that coldness in their mouth, and they're still going to be getting a little bit of the breast milk in their bodies too. Yeah.
Now, if your baby is young, like younger than 3 months, and they spike a fever, that warrants a call to the doctor for sure. Because there's really no way to know like what's going on. So they have to be given the once over for that. But most things that babies get are viral.
Yeah.
Just those viral illnesses that you can't really do too much about, but just ride it out. There's no, there's nothing you can do for it.
There's nothing you can do. But all the things like just focus on comfort. Don't focus at all on germs. We're spreading germs to each other. You're not. That's how it goes. I remember I would every day I would kiss Exley's hands and Jack.
Oh.
Like when they were babies. I'm like, give me that, whatever that's on your hands. My body needs that too.
Yeah.
So I'll tell this story not to freak anyone out, but if it ever happens to you, that hopefully you'll remember the story of me telling it and you'll be able to get through it. So Exley was a toddler at this. He was a toddler at this point. He wasn't a baby anymore. But we had this super intense virus come through the house. And he was very sick. Jack was very sick. I can't remember if I was sick because, with two very sick kids, who remembers?
Right.
I took Exley woke up from a nap crying, and I just was like taking his temperature. You know how you do, obsessively take their temperature, which I don't recommend. You can feel your baby and know if they're having a fever, But I took his fever. I took his temperature, and it was 106.
Oh my God.
And it was horrifying. Like, I just immediately called 911, and they were super nice. Like, they came and we went to the hospital, and they, they did all the tests, and it was just a virus that was spiking a really high fever. And I actually at the time didn't remember this, but the doctor who was in the ER came in and she said, his fever probably wasn't really 106. Your thermometer was just probably broken because, fevers don't get that high.
Jeez.
Which is not true. Especially babies, maybe adults. Adults, I don't think, can get a fever that high unless it's like drug-induced or something. But babies really can get a fever that high. I recommend, obviously, getting help immediately, but I know for a fact that babies can get fevers that high because I didn't, like I said, I didn't remember this at the time, but I had been at the pediatrician's office, I don't know, like a year before that. And we had this pediatrician who I didn't know, and he was just kind of going on about fevers. He was super old. He knew everything about babies and fevers, and he was like, yeah, one of the things that you can do if your baby has a really high fever is you take like a wet sheet, and you put it around them. And as the water evaporates, it evaporates the heat away from their body. And I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. That sounds complicated. And he was like, but that's like really high. That's like 106 or something. And I just looked at him and was like, I refuse to accept that 106 can ever happen to a baby. Like, get out of here with that. And then it happened to me. And Jack, who's 3 years older, his was 105.8 or something like that. So
my God.
My thermometer was not broken in the exact same way 2 times. It was just really bad. So if you ever see that and that's horrifying, just know you'll get through it. We ended up doing Tylenol, ibuprofen, like every 3-hour alternating thing, which I had done. That was the first time I'd ever heard of that. And it stayed down, and we got through it, and everyone got better. But that is like your baby being sick in ways like that is a great way to just, that really gets you in a dark place. It is so scary.
It is. It is. And then you think, well, they're not supposed to get sick like that. They're being breastfed. They're getting breast milk.
No.
They're not supposed to get sick. And it's like, there's no guarantee that your baby is going to never get an illness because they're getting your breast milk.
No,
they might get less illnesses, or they might recover faster.
It all very much depends. Yeah. It did the severity, the frequency, the duration of it. It's all very dependent on all kinds of things. If you have a baby, if you have 2 kids going to daycare, coming home to your baby, like they're going to get sick. Like it's not, there's no way to avoid a baby getting sick. It's not like, oh, your baby's breastfed, now you're invincible. There's viruses in the world. Plus, these things are like their immune systems are being developed. Their immune systems are being worked. It's, being sick is it's like part of what happens to us. Like we have a whole major system like in place to deal with it. And
yeah, absolutely.
But just keep breastfeeding. I can't think of a situation where you would say like, no, don't breastfeed.
I can't either. And
I mean, obviously you have like a very special circumstance where your baby is sick with something very rare, or they have, a pre-existing condition in some way, and you've already gotten this information from your doctor about what to do in that situation, then obviously you should listen to them. But for the general population and the general sicknesses, just keep breastfeeding.
Your breast milk is medicine. So definitely keep breastfeeding. When I worked in the peds office, I had somebody that I knew that was a patient there, and I had known her from a couple years prior, and her son ended up with, I think it was leukemia.
Oh,
and
God. Oh.
He was young because she was still breastfeeding him. So he was like a toddler.
Oh.
And I remember her saying to me, thank God I'm still breastfeeding him, because when he went through chemo and stuff, it was so hard. They couldn't get any food into him. The only thing he would do would be to breastfeed. So she was like, I'm so thankful that I was able to do that for him. And,
that is just I can't,
I know. I can't imagine.
I cannot imagine. And I know that there are listeners who've been through things like that, and you're just, sending you all the love.
Absolutely. Because it is really,
well, and that's
easy.
fair. It's like we had, Hookway, Miss Hookway. I can't think of her first name. Lindsay, of course. Yep. She was on the podcast, and she was the one she did all of that breastfeeding the brave, of babies being breastfed through like leukemia and very serious illnesses and
heart disease.
Yes, she talked a lot about how important breastfeeding was to these parents.
Yeah, definitely check out that episode if you haven't heard it.
I can't believe I'm just thinking about that right now.
Yeah, it is a really great episode about breastfeeding the brave.
She's amazing.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because they need that milk, which is why we're doing like things like the milk bank challenge.
Well, yeah,
because it's medicine for these little babies that are so sick.
Well, it is, and also it's so much more than food. It is so much more than medicine. For a sick child, medicine is like, at the top, but like also getting through it. I mean, getting through something like chemotherapy. I mean, just how physically exhausting and painful and horrible that would be, and being able to just cuddle at your mom's breast, through that process. And parents feeling like, I remember her talking about how parents felt like that was the one thing they could control. It was the one thing that they could offer, that they could do for their babies in these situations where they just felt so hopeless and helpless.
So hard.
I gotta go cry in my pillow now.
So if your baby is sick, just keep breastfeeding, do the best you can with it, follow their cues, offer as much as they will take it. And hopefully
just go ahead and focus on
quick.
all of their comfort. Sorry, I talked over you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, yeah. Absolutely. Focusing on their comfort is number one.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.